and welcome to Cut the Chit Chat, a podcast that gets to the point with people I find interesting. I'm your host, Bart Moyers, and this episode is coming to you from Denver, Colorado in the United States of America. With me today is my guest, Bart Moyers. Bart Moyers, welcome to Cut the Chit Chat. How are you?
Well, thank you, Anna Moyers. It's great to be here.
Well, as you guys may know from his name, this is also my father. Glad to have you here today, Dad. So, the reason I find you interesting, Bart, is that you are not just a person who sees the world as just glass half full, but you're also a person who does whatever they can to help that glass become actually full. You see that there is bad in the world, but you're doing everything that you can to try to correct it. You seek to learn, grow, and love others daily. I love the way you seek after mentorship and you strive to mentor others. I love also the way you make me laugh, the way you love Mom, and the way you support my brother, and mostly the way that you chase after a relationship with our God. So I'm very grateful to have you.
Well, thank you.
All right. So maybe you can begin by just telling us a little bit about yourself. Why do you live in Denver, Colorado? Short version.
The short version is I fell in love with your mother more than 33 years ago. She was absolutely the prize. And we met in Boston. And I knew that she was from Colorado. We got married in Mexico City on a mission plant that we did there back in 1987. Got married in 88. And then that was my passion, was to be a missionary. I had spent 2 years earlier in Costa Rica, and it really got me a taste of what I wanted to do with my life. And so Mexico City, where we got married, and then we went to Argentina and led the church there and helped plant a church in Chile. That's where our boy was born in 1989, born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And then we came back to Mexico and we led the church in Guadalajara, and that's where you were born. So having the wife of my dreams really caused all this to happen, and she's been my greatest support, my fan, my encourager, and all of this would not be possible without her. So, of course, in first place is my relationship with God, and He gave me a wonderful wife to live this life with.
She is pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
We like her a lot.
We do. We really do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So how we do things here on Cut the Chit Chat is we have a jar of hard-hitting discussion questions. Some of them are specifically tailored to you. We're going to just take turns discussing them openly. Sound good?
Great.
All right, let's begin. Would you like to go first?
I'll take the first one sticking out. How's that?
All right.
Okay, it says, what is your greatest hope for my future?
Wow.
And when it says my future, I guess that is your future.
Yes, myself.
I see. Well, my greatest hope for your future is that you will fight the good fight of faith until you die. And you have impressed your mother and I in your steps of faith that you've taken all through your life. And it's not been a easy road. You've had to fight for it. That's why it's called the fight.
Amen. Thanks, Dad. I appreciate that. So my greatest hope for your future is that you continue to seek after what brings that twinkle in your eye. So every once in a while you get these wild hair ideas and these super creative conquests that you want to take on. And whenever you do, you get this little glint in your eye, like you can conquer anything. And so that is the look that makes us all want to wake up on a Saturday morning and run the boulder with you, or move to a different country with you, or whatever it is that makes us really want to get behind you and run with your ideas. So I would hope that you continue to find things that get you out of bed in the morning, and that you desperately run away from the mundane and the boring that comes with getting older and comes with retirement. So I pray that you continue after what sets your soul on fire.
That sounds great. Always stay on the edge, huh?
Come on. Love it.
Good.
All right, we did our first one, Dad. Good job.
We made it.
One down. A few more to go.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. Okay. So, what do you know now that you wish you would have known at the beginning of your relationship with God?
Just, it's an easy one. To have really had a better focus on His unconditional love for me. I didn't have a dad who could show me that. He had PTSD from having been a veteran in World War II. My mother showed me a lot of love, and I got to see her love for God. We did a lot of church growing up, and then later as an adult. My relationship with God at times had a lot to do with my production, what I could do for God.
Yeah.
And just in the last, I would say 5, 6, 7 years, have I come really in touch with the idea that God wants to walk with me every step of the way. He doesn't want to be in front of me. He doesn't want to be behind me. He wants to be right there with me.
Oh.
And that's really deep and powerful and meaningful to me. And He wants me to, the metaphor that your mother and I have latched onto, He wants to be in the sailboat with the sail set in our lives and let His wind blow our sails, versus being in the rowboat where you're only trying to row harder to please Him or to please others. And yeah, those are two different walks with God.
Wow. That's really profound. Thanks, Dad. So I think for myself, it is a lot about the unconditional love aspect as well. I wish I would focus on that a bit more. However, I think what I wish I would have known at the beginning of my relationship with God is that in order to be really successful in it and really consistent, you need to continue to surround yourself with people who are trying to do the same thing. I look at every time in my life where I was really struggling to connect with God, and I noticed that there weren't very many people around me trying to do the same. Yeah. It's so much easier to be a symphony than a solo act. So I think surround yourself with people who want what you want is the best way to go. So yeah, I wish I would have started sooner, being around more people. Now I'm grateful I do have that. I have my army. I have my my people who are ready to come in battle with me. So
and I wish I would have had that thought process where, hey, if I didn't have those kind of friends, I need to pray to Him that He brings me friends, and He can do that.
So speaking of which, do you feel like now you have friends that are those people for you?
I have a trio. These are the guys who I bounce ideas off of, and these are the guys who I'm real with. And they happen to be younger than me. They're beginning with the first person, my son. Lucas has really grown to be that person for me. Another person, his name is Brandon Kibler. Yeah, we're sharing life together, and we, on a whole, are talking together at least once a week, just naturally. It's a natural thing versus something forced, and it's exciting. I learn from these guys. They keep me on the edge of my seat. They check my words, what I say, and I'm real with them, and I think that's been very, very helpful.
That's great, Dad. That's really cool. I think it's your turn.
My turn?
Mm-hmm.
Do I ask a different question?
Yes, please.
All right.
Gotta get the glasses, you know.
Okay, here we go. What is one mistake, only one, that you think you made in raising me? And again, I assume that's you. What is one thing you are proud of in the way you raised me? So I'll start with positive first. How's that?
Okay.
Glass half full guy?
Yeah.
Try to be that?
Okay.
I'm so glad that I was able to raise you with a loving mother and a loving father in your life. That we also had a faith system, a belief system that really was important your mom and your dad, not just in words only, but it was our heart. And you could see actions by the places that we decided to move to, believing that it was God's will to go to these different places. And for you to grow up in that environment and ask yourself the question, so why is it that we move? And why aren't we all like other families who just stay put forever? And there's nothing wrong with staying put forever. But it was God's will for our family to put him first and to respond to different calls that we had along the way. And although it took a toll, because friends are hard to make, and you guys had to make friends fast at places where we lived, I don't regret an ounce of that history. And I think the thing that I would have appreciated doing better at is just what I said about my own formation, and that is to have trained you and Lucas early in life just how much God really loves you unconditionally, and to teach such things as how to listen for his voice and to pay attention, to create space, to realize that the greatest thing that your brain searches for is joy, and that Jesus is the one who came to make our joy complete. And just relational skills that help you in your walk with God as well as with one another. I think that what I mentioned before is that we spent many years in a production environment. In other words, if we wanted to get closer to God, we need to row that boat harder.
Yeah.
We need to read that Bible more. We need to pray that extra hour more.
Be at church more.
Be at church more. Versus, God loves me right now. Mm-hmm. God is good. I'm good. The earth is good. And to take time to really slow down and to meditate on that would have been a wonderful thing to have introduced you and Lucas to earlier in life.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Dad. I think that slowing down versus production versus love, I think is something I have to wrestle with. It's very easy in my nature to just get up and serve, and my brain can just switch off and go into service mode and be in good little Christian girl mode, but to take time to sit in his presence and to be thoughtfully focused on how much he loves me is extremely hard. And and I'm aware of how hard it is. I'm aware of how much I need to work on it, but it is something that's gonna have to.
It's a muscle, just like anything else. You want to be good at doing. You got to practice it, small steps, and then eventually you get better and better at it. Yeah,
it is true. I think it's something that I hope more church leaders learn, because I think, in some of the churches we have been a part of, it is a bit more focused on product versus soul, and how your heart is doing. Not always, but I think sometimes it is something that I would love to see more leaders, get behind. That, how's your soul? Not, hey, I missed you at, at this service event, Yeah.
There's a wonderful story about the Hebrews who are Jews today, and you got to ask the question, how is it that these people, and you've done your study, you love history, you know about the Holocaust, and you know about Jews and history through the years, and you got to ask yourself the question, so how is it that the Jews survived all these years? And I believe that there's some real keys. This people group became family on a real deep level. So is it more important to consider how big we could become, or is it more important to focus on just how deep we can become as a family? I think the evidence proves the latter.
Yeah. It's like I was in a conversation, you were there, with my Uncle Sam, and he was talking about what you should do if thunderstorm was coming, to avoid.
Remember that?
Yeah, to avoid getting struck by lightning.
Yeah.
And he says, if possible, run towards an aspen grove.
Yeah.
The trees, aspens, they have an intertwined root system to where they're one massive organism instead of individual organisms near each other. And the same could be said. Oh, and then versus running to a single tree where it only has a root system that can only go so deep by itself.
Yeah.
And so the same is true, I would say, with, the church body, where if you're alone and you're trying to do it by yourself, you're not going to get much done. But when you're in a community, in a God-protected, God-sanctioned community, your root system is so intertwined and deeply rooted. So
really good.
That's good.
That's a great example.
Come on. Well, I get to answer this one too.
Okay.
I hope that's okay with you.
Yeah, man.
All right. So what's one mistake that you think that you made with raising me, and one thing that you're proud of? So I think I'll go with proud first. Yeah, I am very blessed to be in a healthy family. I think some people might look at our family and think that we're weird how close we are. But I think that also comes with moving so much. But I am grateful that I was raised by two married parents who love each other and love God. So I'm very grateful for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do love the way that you raised us in a biblical home with focus on God, and I think that's really important, and it's helped me have a good root system, like whether I may be struggling or, in a valley of my life, I always had ingrained in me biblical truths and God's truths. So no matter where I was, how much I was sinning or struggling, I already knew the truths deep in my heart. So I think that was great. Thank you. One mistake, I think, is just even something I'm learning as a teacher, is when you correct a child, or if you set rules or boundaries for a child, explain the why. Mm-hmm. We had quite a few rules in our family growing up. I think I would have loved to understand your thought processes behind them and your understanding. I would love to have understood why you had these rules. Maybe I would have obeyed them a bit more. But yeah, I think that's something I'm learning as a classroom teacher, is to say, hey, let me take a quick explanation as to why this rule is in place, and then there's a bit more buy-in from kids. So yeah, I think that's the only thing I would have.
Appreciate it. No, it's good. Great places for me to learn, be more patient, and be more involved in giving you the why. Yeah. Both you kids are smart, and you wanted to know why, and but that's the reality of life. There's a whole lot more trust involved than getting the answers. But I'm now in a house church where I'm helping young parents. They're asking questions such as, how do we help our children do X, Y, and Z? And I'm reviewing all these things that you're bringing up, so it's really, really good. Yeah.
Well, and I think you're right. It does depend on the scenario and what the situation is. Obviously, don't run into the street. That's a quick explanation. You will die. But, and I think with each situation, it is different. What do we have sit-downs about, and what do we just take as blanket truths? I vividly remember you taking me out for a soda one day in downtown Durango, and you showed me every single verse that talked about saving sex till marriage. Every single verse in the entire Bible. You were very thorough. You combed that bad boy. Wow. But those truths stuck with me, and it helped me understand, this is why we do what we do. This is why you say, don't do that. So, but there is a common ground, or a middle ground in some situations. Some situations have the severity. Let's dig in. Let's talk about why. And there's others that obviously are probably more blanket situations. And I think it is just finding that, middle ground of why don't we say that? Why don't we say but when we are in elementary school? I don't know, all the different rules that we had. So
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because this story of sex is such a heavy, heavy topic in our world today.
Yeah, let's go there.
One of the metaphors that I heard and thought would be very, very good, I just would love to get your thoughts about it, was the metaphor of a gift. Mm-hmm. And I think I said many times during your teenage years that you're my gift.
Yeah.
And the day that I give you to a young man for him to unwrap in all of the metaphor and thoughts behind that scene, I really hoped that was something that you could stay with and believe, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to be my dad's gift.
Yeah. No, I think it definitely made sense. It definitely helped me through a lot of my life. But I also made a lot of mistakes in my life too already. And
Me too.
I think it's important to know that even if maybe you didn't do the best job of protecting or keeping that gift safe like you had hoped, that it's still a really beautiful gift and it's still a gift worth giving. And so I think I placed a lot of seriousness on what you taught me when I was young, but then I also had to learn how to give myself a lot of grace when I dropped the ball.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it was a good foundation.
I really do believe this is a ground that the enemy has had for so long.
Yeah.
And has made talking about sex so weird and so, no, we don't talk about that with parents. We don't talk about that, we talk with our peers and we hear stories and buy into agreements about how that life should be. And I'm glad that we're having this discussion. I know that that's so important for young boys to have, as well as an openness.
Yeah.
That was not something that I had from a father or a mother. Let's sit down and hash this out and talk about it. But I think that your generation can be one that says, when kids come along, let's have these discussions. I mean, kids by the age of 7, I'm told, already have seen pretty terrible pornographic images, and once you swipe your phone and you can see something, you can't unsee it. And so it's important for us to stay ahead of that curve and to build immunity.
Yeah, it's a great point. I'm off and on reading a book called God, Sex, and the Conservative Church. And I think it's really important that people who are parents or wanting to be parents, or even just are people who grew up in church, like, you need to deal with the way sex was sold to you. Because it can be really damaging. Either you feel like it's a complete and utter sin, and then you're expected to, the day you get married, just go forth and do it. Like, how do you tell yourself one day that, stealing a car is illegal, but one day you're like, oh, go ahead. It's like so it's tough to rewrite that internal code. And I think it is a journey that parents need to do a better job of walking their kids through and making it a conversation that is taboo enough to know that it's a serious conversation, but not so taboo where kids don't feel comfortable talking about it. And I think that is an area where kids in the conservative church environment, similar to that I grew up in, really struggle, because either we go nuts when we are out of the home, or we become so sheltered and drawn in with ourselves that our marriage can really struggle. Either way, we're bringing damage and hurt into a marriage. And so I think I have no idea how to do that. I'm obviously not a parent, and I don't have to deal with that now, but I think it is something that needs to be addressed. Like, what kind of hurt do you have around sex, whether you are married, one day you may be married, one day you may have kids. All of us have baggage around that topic. And the more you can figure out ways to appropriately breach the conversation with your kids, I think the better. But that's something that you as a parent have to, work through your own situation, issues with it, so that way you can bring a healthy view to your child.
People that have come before us, leaders who have said, hey, here's how you date in this church, or here's how you handle yourself. I get it. It's within us to poo-poo that sort of structure.
Yeah.
But they're from good-hearted and good-meaning people who know that boundaries are a good thing.
For sure.
So the focus is how to give this whole story back to God and let Him be honored with that part of your life.
Yeah, there has to be, like, if God is not your relationship, then it's going to struggle. I mean, your relationship is going to go through peaks and valleys for sure, but if God is not the focus of your relationship, it's not going to be as successful as it could. But also I think, like, there is some serious biblical truths in the Bible about how to date, how to court, how to have a successful marriage, and how to have a successful sex life.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in there. But I think being intentional about making wise decisions, setting solid boundaries, having accountability, all those things aren't old, outdated notions. We don't like to be told what to do or advised on what to do. And I hope that I'm able to learn from the good things that I've seen and learn from the bad things that I've seen in relationships around my life, that I'll be able to grow and foster a solid, long-lasting relationship.
Yeah.
So, great. Well, thanks for going there.
Yes, we did.
Well, we went there. All right. So, another difficult conversation. How do you heal from trauma?
Can you start, or do I start?
You start, yeah.
Well, the idea of growing up without a father figure in my life was a positive and a negative. Positive because I felt like, unlike my peers, I needed to have a father figure, and so I reached out to God at an early age, and that was a real important piece of my life. Negative in the fact that I did not have the daily, play baseball and love poured out to me, and let's go over here or fish or all that. And that's been a lifelong learning to turn my pain into someone else's gain. Mm-hmm. But we'll call growing up without a father my trauma. And I believe probably in my, it would have been mid-20s, maybe late 20s, I came to the place where I was willing to forgive my dad. Just, even though he didn't know it, I just needed to carte blanche forgive him, because he didn't know, what was going on. And that was a big day, big day. And I still have to come back to it. We call it the father wound.
Yeah.
But I believe we all have traumas. And I believe that the only way to deal with those traumas is to be healed by Jesus Christ. And isn't it funny sometimes when you are talking to an older person and you think to yourself, this person is immature.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I've learned that typically the reason for that is that they suffered a trauma.
Yeah. Let's
just say at the age of 8, 9, 10, whatever. And they never dealt with it in life. They just kind of, kind of went on. But your life has to mature. And if it doesn't, you'll be 12 years old for the rest of your life in certain areas.
Yeah.
If you relive your trauma with Jesus and ask the questions, go ahead and ask him, where were you? That's a tough question. Why didn't you save me from this?
Amen, yeah.
Well, the answer, I believe, is we do live in a broken world. But the answer to what Jesus would say to that is, I was right there with you. I was hurting all the way. And to have that sort of a healing process, it doesn't take a day or two. It'll take some time. But I do believe Jesus wants to walk with us and speak to our hearts clearly, dealing with the different traumas we've had in our lives.
Yo. Wow, thanks for talking about that. I appreciate that. Trauma is so hard, and it is something I'm very interested in learning more about, specifically like the intricacies of our brain and how our brain rewires itself once you've gone through trauma. Like, like there's like black holes in your heart that have to get patched up somehow. And if you don't patch it up healthily, like it's gonna be rotting away, And when I think of trauma in my life, I think of the death of my two friends in my young life, and that was a lot to go through at that age, 16, and then like 21 or 22, and it was a lot. But I think you're right, like you have to visit it, like you have to go there. I think the best thing I did before I got God really involved was, for step one, was to just allow myself to weep. Taking the time, like scheduling time to weep, to go somewhere and just fall apart and not be okay. I think that is step one.
It's really good.
And I think that covers a lot of different types of trauma. When you're ready to heal, go on that journey with someone else. I mean, obviously God, but another human being, just help you navigate that. There are people who do it as a profession, counselors, therapists who would love to help you navigate that, but also good friends, mentors, people who can empathize with your pain, I think is really important. Yeah, going through it and forgiving God is really big, and I never really thought of that until within this last year. This academy class that I took was really helpful in helping me see that there are times where you had expectations on God, and he never said that he was gonna protect you from every hurt ever, and so when he doesn't come through and doesn't save you from something, protect you from something, it's our reaction to be mad. And we don't think that we can be mad at God because he's God, but there's nothing that we feel that scares him. And so allowing yourself to be mad at him and expressing that verbally and and then working through that, I think is really important. So step one, feel. Step two, deal. And step three, forgive. So it's a lot, and it sounds way easier than it is, and it is a process that can take a really long time, and it's also sadly a never-ending process. Like you had mentioned, it's something you have to revisit a lot. I just wept about one of my friend who passed away over a decade ago. I just wept about it a few weeks ago because it came back into my heart in a different way. And so I think you're never fully okay. It does just get easier or different to deal with. So.
What if we were to have the mature mindset that we have gone through those traumas, we have gone through that pain, so that we could learn how to help others gain from it? And I really think that's a deep concept that I've come into probably in just the last 5 to 10 years. I think that person who has been in a divorce, very, very painful. If taken a large sort of 30,000 foot view of that, well, maybe there's people hurting out there that you could use your pain to help. I can tell you other kinds of traumas that I've been able to go back in life and look at and say, wonder if that really is in my life, so that I can turn around and minister to people from that pain. And it's helped me.
And I think sometimes it's the only thing that can truly help you forgive that it happened, is knowing that now I can go help someone else.
Right.
Because I can't justify why I lost these people in my life. I don't want to.
Right.
But if that means that I can help someone else deal with a young death later, then fine. Come on. Great.
My turn to pull out of the Quaker Roads can, huh?
I need to paint it.
Let's see what we have. Are you having fun so far?
So far, so good, man.
Okay. Let's see what we have.
Hasn't passed your bedtime yet.
Who, in your opinion, is the most underrated person in history? Wow, look at that.
So, listeners, my father and I are quite the United States history nerds. I taught U.S. history for quite some time. I live in Africa now, so people don't really need the United States history so much in Rwanda, but I'm still obsessed with it. I think obsessed is probably a good term for it.
Well, as you know, my hobby is Old West history.
Yeah.
And I do love all things Revolutionary War. I love things all Civil War. Those are all American history events. But in the West, which is basically here in Colorado, go west to California,
Mm-hmm.
there are just great stories that I love. There's a story between two men, Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp, that there have been movies made about them and books written. I got a bunch of them here. The thing that I like about the two people and their relationship with one another is that this actually happened, this relationship. You have to know American history a little bit. You have Wyatt Earp, who comes from the north, and then you have Doc Holliday, who comes from the south. Fresh after the Civil War, that's the last kind of person you wanted to have as a friend.
That's a great point.
But these guys met each other for the first time in Texas and then later in Kansas. And then there was a big historical shootout called the Shootout at the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona. And there's a lot to be said here. I think one day I'll probably write some sort of book about their relationship.
Amen.
But it's a relationship that any man would want to have. And these guys are known as, sort of anti-heroes because they both did some bad things. But this relationship that they were able to have, there's a lot to it, and you have to dig deep for it. So I would say the underrated is this duo, Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp, and how they had a relationship that really each other needed from one another.
Yeah. It is like we talked about before, good male friendships are not always easy to come by.
Right.
And so anytime you see them portrayed well in history, it's kind of beautiful. So, yeah, it's fun to watch you a little bit obsess over this.
Obsess is a good word.
Obsess over these guys. So
yeah.
That's great. I think for me, I'm a pretty big Revolutionary War buff. I've always wanted to call myself some type of history buff. I think it's fair.
Buff is good.
That now. So I am a big fan of many people. So those of you who really know me would probably think I would say someone else, but I'm thinking underrated. First, my heart goes to John Adams.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of a butthead. And people did not like him.
Yeah. Obnoxious and disliked.
Yep, obnoxious and disliked is exactly
as the song goes.
The musical 1776 portrays him as. So I like him because I do think things get done sometimes by people who aren't afraid to be a little obnoxious and disliked. And I like to keep a few of those people in my corner. Who like to stir the pot a little bit. It keeps things fresh and keeps things going. I think a pearl is formed by irritation.
Yeah.
And I think that's how the United States works. But even more so than him is his bad ass wife.
Yeah, Abigail.
She is a rock star of American history. She is the woman I want to be one day. She is not afraid to speak her mind. Her mind is made up intelligently, I think. Like, she educates herself and she involves herself in the affairs of her husband and the affairs of her nation and her country, but also her environment that she's in. And I really love and admire the relationship with her husband that she has, in that he respects her opinion and she's not afraid to let him know when he's being obnoxious and disliked and giving him advice and stuff. So I think that marriage is interesting. And I also think that she is awesome. And I think that there are things in American history that she doesn't receive credit for, but I think she really had a hand in making happen. And maybe we'll never really know all the things that were actually her idea instead of John's, but I do love that. And I love the way that, her example segues into other phenomenal first ladies.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the likes of Eleanor Roosevelt, you look at, even Laura Bush and my girl, Michelle Obama, and how they were able to use their office as First Lady to positively impact their nation, and their sphere of influence is really beautiful. Yeah. So I think it helps me remember that, the role of First Lady initially was supposed to be ceremonial, and you host the gatherings and you kind of sit back in the shadow and do nothing. And you're kind of it's an arm piece, And this kind of helps me remember, no matter what my position in life, I could always be using it for the betterment of others and to just help and support other people. So I think that's Abigail for me.
Well, I love Abigail.
Great. Yeah, man. I love talking about history, as you know. So, all right. So this will be an interesting one. What, in your opinion, is something that my generation gets wrong?
I think I just was reminded about this at the 4th of July celebration we had. I think that it's easy for your generation to confuse which party is in charge of the administration with how wonderful it is to be part of this country.
Mm-hmm.
That is confusing. It should not be. Since 1776, there's been a lot of blood spilled so this country can stay free and have liberty. And no matter who's in charge, and by the way, that will only last 4 to 8 years, things will change. So it's simply having patriotism run deep. You are part of a family that has veterans who have fought in different wars.
Yeah.
And that needs to continue to run deep. And even if we're talking to someone here who does not have any veterans in their family, still, this is a wonderful country, and there's reasons why to be proud to be part of it. If you're from another country, I invite you to dig deep and find out reasons why to be proud of the country you're from. That's really important.
I would agree. I think we are lacking in a sense of patriotism. We get caught up in all the things America does wrong, which the list is long, and you should be mad about those things, 100%. Let's fight about them. But let's also remember why America is good and why what we do that's well, and if anything, like you said, respecting and honoring those people who have come before us and fought for us, I think is really big. We don't do that enough. I think that's great. Yeah. I think for your generation, I think we are pushing you to be uncomfortable faster than you're ready for sometimes, but I wish let me get to the point. I think your generation struggles at being accepting. There is a lot of deeply ingrained prejudices and biases towards different people groups, most specifically people who don't look the same as you in race, religion, ethnicity, and the LGBTQIA community for sure. And I think I understand it's something that has been ingrained in your generation for a very long time. You guys have been around the block a few times, but it's time. It's time for change. It's time for growth. We have a lot to learn from you, and I don't think that my generation does a good enough job honoring your generation and trying to learn from them. I think we just try to rewrite everything, and that's like trying to rebuild the wheel. It doesn't make any sense. You guys have done a lot of great things to make it a great place to live now, but I think it would be nicer to see more people of your generation get on board, and not just get on board like accept, but get on board and support and encourage and show more love sooner. But I know it's a journey that every person has to go on, but, are you on that journey? Mm-hmm. There's a difference, I think, between people who just sit back and say, nope, that's not for me, the way I've done it is just fine, versus people who are actually trying to grow and learn and change, someone such as yourself. Yeah. And I think you always have to just check your heart. Yeah.
I have no argument. I think you're absolutely right. And I'm blessed to have 2 young children who can, with much grace, help me through the different changes of society and help me know what to say, what not to say, check what I'm thinking. I think that's how life is supposed to be. We're supposed to have a multi-generational life where the young can help the older and the older can help the younger. Mm-hmm. And when we just stay amongst our age group, we really slight other people, because that's how we learn. And hopefully I'll change and learn and be able to be more sensitive.
That's great. I hate the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
As you very much can. It just depends on your heart posture. So.
That's right. It's good, baby.
All right, Dad. Well, the last question I ask all of my guests is, what is it about today's world that really is unsettling to you? What is it that stirs up passion in your heart? And what are you doing about it? Maybe, and what is something you could encourage your listeners to get involved with or do about it?
Yeah, I think that I've alluded to that in this podcast. I think that my pain of not having a dad is something that I really wanted to be for my children in a very intentional way. And so that's a breakthrough in my story, because I didn't have that, as I've already shared. Now, Lucas and I have turned around and made this our ministry.
Come on.
How to turn around and help fathers and sons connect with each other and connect with God. And so just last year we had our very first father-son camp.
Yeah.
And we've been working on that for quite some time. We have a board of about 10 people that are helping us put this all together. We have 4 individual camps that we want to run. Camp 1 is a survival skills camp where fathers and sons learn how to partner with one another, with God, how to suffer well together. And to help us do that, we have them run through some survival skills training, thanks to a Navy SEAL and a British Commando that we have. And so that's year 1. Year 2, this year we're offering a automotive skills camp. But the metaphor, the spiritual takeaway from that is how to take your power that you have and build relationships.
Wow.
So a car is sort of like a relationship. It can be a good thing. It can also be a bad thing, but you have to maintain it. You have to take care of it. Year 3 will be a house remodel camp. Year 4 is about finding a hobby that both father and son can enjoy. So. Cool. Anyway, I really enjoyed doing that with Lucas. We've had a great time. We've got some great friends helping us, and that's what I'm doing.
That's so cool, Dad.
Take a look at the website, www.skpcamp.com.
That's great, and people can get involved and go to these camps no matter where they're from. They don't need to be from Colorado.
That's right.
That's great. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for tuning in with us, and thank you so much to my guest, Bart Moyers, a.k.a. Dad. Thank you for being interesting and getting to the point with us. We'll see you next time here on Cut the Chit Chat with Anna Moyers. Until then, make good choices, be good people, and remember, God loves you.
Love you.